Hello everyone, it is Christine here and it's lovely to have you back for our 2026 Stitch Along where we are creating lovely hexagons that we can turn into a mat for our workspaces or all sorts of other ideas that our community are doing. So I've got a lovely little tin of hexies already. The ones at the front I still need to put the backs on, but all of these ones down here are done. And for this week's version, the inspiration I want to share with you is to think about washing hanging on a line. If you're anything like me, you do collect vintage linens and you'll often have them fluttering in the wind. And then obviously there's always the things that we have to do the washing, invariably the odd sock that we find in the wash, but also having a bit of a fun with this little design that I've drawn up and which I'll be sharing in our Slow Stitching Friends Facebook group in case you want to stitch something similar, but also encouraging you to have a go with drawing. If you're anything like me, you might not be a confident drawer, but I had a lot of fun just coming up with this simple little design. So I've got a pair of, I guess, men's boxer shorts, and I thought I'd make them fun and quite flamboyant. So maybe do them like in a bright colour, possibly maybe this bright green. And then I've got this sweet little dress with some flower designs on it and a heart and then a stripy sock. And I decided just to do the one sock because I think it is fun to reflect the fact that sometimes we do end up with the odd sock and we just don't know where the other ones have gone. And then I've had the idea to put a little bird on the washing line and some little song notes coming out. Now I know in many parts of the world it is quite cold now, but here in Australia we're having warm weather and it is the perfect washing weather. So this one will be an embroidery design and I'll definitely do some of that with you in today's episode. But I also want to give you a little design that you can do that's going to be a bit more dimensional, but I'll show you how you can stitch the pieces down. And what I've done for this one is selected some fabrics that I thought, originally I was thinking I'll just make them into little tablecloths, but then I had the idea of turning them into little aprons. So let me just bring you down a little bit closer because it might just be easier to show you. Make sure we're in focus. So this one started out like a square, just like this one. I didn't worry when I cut it out. I cut it out with a bit of extra room around it, and then I used my Yoo-hoo glue just to fold in and stick down the edges. So that's just the Yoo-hoo glue holding it at this stage. And then what I did was a gathering stitch, which I'll show you on this one, to turn it into a little apron like thing. So my plan for this one is to use some braid to make a washing line, and then to have the two little aprons, and then have this one like a tablecloth. I'll probably end up hanging it this way, and then I'll probably stitch some little pegs on so it's like they're pegged on the line. So that's the plan for this one, and I thought for this one I won't have the central hexagon. I'll just have the washing line because I'm kind of mixing it up a bit with my hexies. So like these ones all have a centerpiece. This one's a whole one. This one's a whole one. Centerpiece, centerpiece, centerpiece. This one's got a different type of centerpiece. This is a whole one. This one's sort of a hexie, but a different sort of centerpiece. And this one's a whole one. So I've got a bit of a mix going there. So I'm happy to sort of continue that along. A big welcome to everyone joining in the live chat while this is premiering. If you are watching while it shows premiere on it, you can join the live chat by swiping across at the bottom. So I might start with the dimensional one first. I don't think it should take us too much time to get it put together. I've got a needle already just threaded up with some regular white thread, which actually no, I might use some red thread instead because it might just look better if it shows a little bit across the gathering of the apron. And yeah, I thought this might be a fun idea that you can then, of course, adapt in your own way. Or if the idea doesn't take you for this week, as you know, with this stitch along, there's no firm themes. I'm just sharing some inspiration that you can take or leave as you desire. And again, it's just so fabulous in our Slow Stitching Friends group just to see all the wonderful varieties of hexies that folks are developing. So I think I'll have the apron up this way. So I'll just start by sort of hiding my knotted end at one end, and I can trim off the little taily bit because we don't need that. And then I'll just put an extra stitch in just to sort of start and make sure we're holding securely. And then I'm just going to pass my needle up and down along the folded in edge. So this is where I've folded over with a bit of glue to hold it in place, just so that I don't have raw edges. If you don't care about raw edges, you don't have to do that folding and gluing step. And again, if you don't want to use glue, you could just fold it over, iron it to sort of keep it flat, and then do this stitching into it. So once I've kind of gone through the other end, I'm going to pull it a little bit tight. I don't want it like so tight that it's totally gathered up. I just want it with a bit of gather in it. And once it's up to that point, I want to then just stitch through and just get a bit of a knot to hold it a bit securely. So I'll put another stitch in and do another knot just to give it a good catch. There we go. So you can see it's got a nice little bit of gathering there, and don't worry that it's sort of bulging up because we're going to stitch it down onto the piece. So I might leave the thread on that one because I can reuse that, but let's now put our little bit of washing line in it. Now if you don't have a nice like little braid like this, I've actually got this in a little selection of braids that I got at the op shop the other week. They had quite a few of these lovely little ones, so I had them sitting by the desk, and I thought, oh, that nice bright yellow would be fun. And it almost looks like it's maybe got some little pegs or some little things to hang off on it already. So I thought I might put it sort of across there. That would give me plenty of room. This one I am half thinking I want to hang down that way. I think I will, even though I guess it would be flip-flopping a bit more in the wind, and I might even make it look like it's sort of creasing a bit in the wind as well. So that might be fun actually. So yeah, I think I'll have that bit about there. So let me grab some yellow thread. Do I have a nice bright yellow I can use? Just having a look in my little selection of threads, turning it round. What have I got over here? Is it going to be bright? Yep, that should be bright enough, I think. Bit of old vintage yellow thread. So I hope you're all having a beautiful, or hopefully you've had a beautiful week, and when you're watching this, some of you might be just coming to the end of your Fridays and looking out into the weekend. And for those of you watching in New Zealand or Australia, we will be into our Saturday morning, because I'm back to regular programming of Saturday morning. Because on Sunday morning, I'll be watching my lovely friend Annie from Arty Farty Annie. She'll be having her live Arty Farty party on Saturday night in the UK, but it will be, Sunday morning here in Australia and New Zealand. So I'll just anchor my thread at the back, and then I think I'll probably just use a couching stitch over this, I think, and I'll come in and put one at the edge as well, just to hold it properly at the edge. And I might just do an extra stitch at the back just to make sure it's all going to stay in place. Let's make sure we're in focus, because I was probably focused up from before. What am I doing? Yes, like this. So with all my hexies, I'm having them flat at the base. So I just always have to think about that in my design plans. And I want to have the washing line sort of dipping down a bit. I like my things to have a bit of whimsy to them. I was even thinking that because the braid has a bit of twist and movement in it, I wasn't even fussed if my washing line almost looks like it's sort of blowing a bit in the wind as well. That's why I selected this fabric. And in fact, with this fabric, have I got a piece of here's the original fabric. Rather than using the front of it, I actually used the back of it because it gave a more muted tone, and I just thought with the washing on it, it would almost look like some fields behind, or possibly even some flowers and things blowing around in the wind. That was the thinking. I was about to start this video earlier, but I got stuck watching, I think it's called the 1% Club on TV, where they give you all sorts of puzzles and things. I do love myself a puzzle. Like using my brain in different ways. I think that's why I like sort of stitching projects which are a bit more free form. And I quite like these ones where, yeah, even coming up with this project and thinking about how I would create the hexies different to how people have sort of done stitch as you go, quilt as you go. I wanted to kind of come up with my own approach, one that didn't require that whole sort of folding in the edges thing, and one that didn't require too much maths or too much precision. And so, yeah, I like challenging my mind that way. I think that's why I like my job too. There's sort of, yeah, never a routine or boring sort of, yeah, day. There's always lots going on, lots to figure out. It's been particularly busy. I feel like the year is well and truly back into full swing at work. Went in yesterday, which probably does sort of exhaust you a bit more, because not only are you commuting in, but then, yeah, we had a big day, caught up with the team and had a big afternoon tea for our whole division. Because we've just sort of, yeah, formed up our new division post a restructure, so lots of new folks in, but also wanted to sort of farewell folks that are moving off to other parts of the organisation. That was nice, lots of yummy food. But I must admit, it does take the energy out. So last night I can't even remember. Oh, no, I think I was just playing with this idea, doing a bit of sketching of the design, and I was packaging up a few little packagey things to send out. I've also started my destashing, so I've been starting with destashing some of my bigger bits of fabric, so various little packages and things have been going out as part of that. I might try and do some packs at some point. It's just they take quite a bit of time to put together, so at the moment I've just been, yeah, selling the bits of fabric and things as they are. But I've got lots of beautiful laces and linens and doilies and bits and pieces. So I do have a box that I'm putting things in that I thought would be good for kits and sort of themed kits. It's just finding the time. So yeah, I might start by putting, I guess I could put it so it's like a little peg on that. So I need to think about if I got a nice little brown. That would work for a peg, I think. No, a peg's usually a little bit lighter, aren't they? Probably doesn't matter too much. I do have a slightly lighter. Even got a goldy coloured. You do also get those metal pegs, don't you? Probably wouldn't see that much, I don't think. I'm just having a look at my other thready bits over there. Or do I want to use a bit of goldy? I've got my Gutermann threads over here too. Again, I just don't think that's going to show out that much, so I think I might use this brown just so that we can actually see it. And then they'll be more like those weathered sort of vintage pegs. Okay. Sometimes it's hard working out where the end of your thread is. So once we've done that, then we can have a play with sort of giving it that crinkled in the wind effect. And so, yeah, when I was selecting fabrics, I had this fabric which has lots, almost like a patchwork design on it. And I thought, oh, that would be a fun little tablecloth. And so I just folded it in, so it sort of went to about half of the size. I'm just looking where that fabric's gone. I can't see it. And then for my other apron, it was just this fabric, and I just cut out a piece like that and left the edge so I could fold in the edges. And then this one, did I show you that before? Again, I just took one of these little squares but left a bit of edging around it. So look if you've got something, but otherwise if you don't, I was thinking you could even do something quite cute with like a lace. So I was having even just like a look at this. You could make a little apron with a piece of lace, so that could be quite cute, or a little skirt. You could also do something like little tutus using some tulle. That could be a lot of fun. So lots of possibilities. Don't feel stifled. Just work with what supplies you've got on hand. I don't want this to be a project where, again, you have to get special supplies. Just have a play. And even if you've just got regular fabric, you can still do something similar to this. But have a look around, have a ponder. So for my pegs, I think I'll just do some little up and down stitches, although I could try and do a bullion knot, couldn't I? Let's see if we can do this. So I'm going to bring my needle through. I'm then going to wrap my needle in a clockwise direction for a little bit, so I'm getting enough wraps. I'm sort of looking at the distance they are on the needle. I'm not sure how well you can see, but that's probably enough. And then I'm going to hold my wraps and slide them off the end of the needle. This works best when you do have a needle that's relatively sort of consistent sized. And then I'm going to keep them nicely sort of laid out. It is very fine with this thread, so you might not even be able to see it that well, but I'll bring it up and show you in a moment. Then I'm going to take my thread back into the material up from where I was, and then I'll bring it up, and hopefully you might be able to see. It might not show you that well, but it's got like a little, that's a bullion knot there with all the wraps on the piece of thread. And it does just look like a bit of a peg up the top. So I think that's pretty good for the peg. It would be probably much easier one day to show you the bullion knot done at a thicker scale. I'll even have a think if I can maybe use it somewhere in this one so I can show you, but if not, I'll show you with a thicker thread at some stage. But I'll show you it a bit more with the small thread anyway, so you get to see the technique. So I was thinking with this one, I want to kind of give it that sense of a bit of movement. So I'll get a bit of red thread with another needle. I love again doing these sorts of dimensional little miniature scene pieces. I think they're a lot of fun. And even if that's not going to sort of suit what you're making for your mat or whatever, you could always think about how you might be able to use it like on a needle book or something else like that, which I will be showing you an idea for a needle book soon. So stay tuned for that. So just do a little holding stitch in the corner, which we'll barely be able to see. And then I might just pop over, might actually just pop over the back, so I'll just pass my needle sort of just so it's not creating a big long loop on the back, but it probably doesn't really matter because this is all going to be enclosed. And then I'll pop up over here. About there. Obviously don't want it to be super standing up from the piece. I just want it to have that little bit of a sense of movement in it. So you can see that's kind of because those 2 points are held, and then I might just do something similar down the bottom. So I'm just sort of crinkling it up a bit so we get a bit of a feel of the wind blowing it around. And I'm just popping up and down very close, so it's just putting a little stitch in to hold it. And because I'd folded the sort of the pieces half over, that's why I'm getting that nice little, almost like a little tinted effect. Ooh, I think we've gone out of focus, so let me just bring us back into focus. Apologies for that. Happens when we come up and down. I do film these videos all as one go, so I can't go back. I mean, I could go back in and edit, but I don't because I just want to just keep it nice and simple. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. You can probably see it's just got a nice little bit of standing upwardness from the fabric, but not too much. And I can always just pop down just to make sure that where I've just got the edges folded in, I'll just put some extra little stitches in to just make sure it does stay down, as it were. Just because these edges aren't actually stitched down at the moment, they're just glued down, I do want to make sure that they don't sort of pop up or sort of come apart. And putting the one little stitch in will just be enough to hold them. And then this little one here. And then we'll just pop around. Actually, that's probably almost right, but I'll just put one more in here. Here we go. And tie that off, and then we'll come over and we can do our little apron over here, which I've still got the thread attached for that one, so we can just stitch that on. So again, I'll come in and do the pegs afterwards. For now, oops, I've just realised I'm stitching the back on. That's not how I want to do it. We'll just redo that. Make sure it's round the right way. As I say, the Yoo-hoo glue does a great job of holding the fabric, but if you ever do need to sort of take it apart, give it a pull, it will come easily away. This time I've got it the right way round. So I'll put some stitches in to hold it up the top, and I'll put one in the middle just to, even though I want it to look like it's swinging in the breeze, I do still want it to be attached down to my piece. And then I'll move my way down the edge. So again, I'm just popping up near the seam, as it were. Focus in again. Just to anchor it down. And then what it's going to do is give us that lovely sort of puffy look to it. You can see these would make lovely little cards for folks as well, I think. Probably it's those of us that have the vintage linens and things that particularly love doing a wash. I must admit my normal wash doesn't inspire me as much as when I'm soaking lovely old linens and they're freshening up in the sun and the breeze outside. So that one's pretty well stitched down. And I was thinking after the fact I could always add some little ribbons coming off, but I think at the moment I'm pretty happy. And you could even do the ribbons just with a bit of thread, like a thicker thread. Like even a bit of this you could have as your little apron strings coming off it. So that's a possibility. I'll just stitch that off on the back. And then we can attach our other one on, and then we can put a few pegs on, and then we will be done on that one. Yeah, I'll just use a white, I think. That should do the job. Yeah, this one looks like it's got a lovely pocket on the front of it. So just put this one about there. Again, I will pop through, I'll then bring it through where I want it to be on the apron. And then I'll just... Yeah, I wanted, if I am going to use this on my mat versus using it on another project, I just don't want to have unfinished edges, because invariably I will end up spilling something on my mat, and invariably I will end up having to wash it. So I want to prepare for that eventuality. I think it is, in fact this week it will have been Kaz from Lovecraft Kaz's birthday, so happy birthday Kaz. Hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. In fact, I think it is actually, I'm filming this on Wednesday, and I think today might be Kaz's birthday, so I will send them a message as soon as I finish this video. I find once the week starts, it goes at a crazy pace, and before I know it, I was like, oh, I better do my video for Saturday, because sometimes it can take a bit of time to upload. Sometimes the YouTube uploading just decides to go at a glacial pace. I had to laugh. Someone left a comment on, I think on last week's Stitch Along video, they said too many words. And I thought that was so funny, because obviously I make these videos it's a chatty, stitchy thing. It's about community. It's about sharing the joy of just kind of having that feeling of being in a little stitching community get together. So I just thought that was funny. I just laughed. You got to laugh sometimes. I suppose some people might go to those videos where they just want to have music or something behind it as people quickly illustrate a stitch, but that's not what these are about. I'm just not really into that. I want to connect to people. I want to be relaxed. I don't want to just be editing a video to make it all schmick and fancy. It's not my jam. But yeah, it's funny. I suppose it's like with me when I watch some of those videos where it's so fast you can't even see what they're doing, but I wouldn't bother leaving a comment. I just move along and find some other chatty, talky people. But I know Annie from Arty Farty Annie, she often gets people saying, stop waffling. Whereas many of us watch her because we love a bit of waffle, and we love a bit of stitching and chatting and creating. So each to their own. That's what makes the world a rich place, isn't it? That we're all different peeps. So I'll show you the bullion stitch again. So you can pop through at one point, and then what you want to do is come a bit below where you want the bottom of your peg to be, and then pop back through to that first place where you came out. Push your needle, but don't bring it all the way through. And then with your finger, hold your needle and then start wrapping around clockwise. So you're basically putting wraps onto your needle. And you want to put enough wraps that when you sort of push them down, like I'm doing with my finger, that they form about the length that you want whatever object you're having the bullion knot represent. So that's sort of making a peg about that size, which I reckon will be pretty good. Then you want to hold your little loops. Keep them sort of as much sort of together as you pull your needle through. You'll then have a lovely little set of loops. Sometimes when you do it in a bigger thread, it actually looks a little bit like a little worm. Let's see if we can get it to focus. So it's a little set of loops on your thread, and then go back into the hole that you had where the thread was before. Pull your thread through, and you'll just have your lovely little peggy bits. I'll just quickly do another one over here. So I'll pop through there, bring my peg back up angling, not take my needle all the way through, and then start wrapping. once you kind of get the hang of it, these can take a while. I remember the first few times I did them, I was kind of like, oh, what am I doing? It's that kind of which way the needle goes through. But once you get the hang of it, it's a handy little stitch. There we go. And I won't make you, oh maybe, oops, sorry, because I was out of focus then. I can pop across and I'll just do the final one, given I was out of focus again. Christine. So again, we're going to pop through there and then pop to the bottom where the peg will go, bring our needle through, use our finger to hold it, and then start wrapping clockwise around it. Squish them sort of down your needle so that they all sort of line up, and then hold onto them as you bring your needle through. Don't worry if they sort of overlap a bit, they'll generally line themselves back up into an orderly fashion like that, and then take yourself back down through where the thread is, and there they are. And then we'll do that again over here, and then we're actually all done on this one. So come through here, angle it back up to where we came out, and then get your thread and wrap it clockwise. Oops, don't get your tail. Clockwise, clockwise, clockwise. Showing it down. And down like that. So there we go. Tie that off, and we'll move on to our other one for the second half of this video. I think that was all I was going to do. You could obviously add embroidery, or if you did just have plain fabrics, you could make them look like little aprons. You could even add your own little pockets on using a similar technique. But you can see how lovely and dimensional it's got, that lovely little pleating. That one definitely looks like it's sort of moving in the breeze. So yeah, very happy with that. You could even write on wash day or something like that if you wanted to, but I'm pretty happy. So let's swing on to this one. So I might start just thinking, because I was thinking it'd be fun to do this in sort of in red, but will it go okay with the purple next door? I think it will. And then maybe I could always use the green though for that actually. Maybe I'll do the shorts in green. And on the little skirt, I was thinking I might put a bit of rickrack. I actually cut a little bit off. Yeah, I think I'll put a bit of rickrack down the bottom, so it's a fun way if you've got some small trims and things. Again, this other sort of trim that I got at the op shop would be really cute. I could even put a bit of that maybe around the neck. But let's begin the process, although maybe I should put my rickrack on first and then stitch over it with this thread. I will do that. And in fact, maybe I can whip it down, because that's a good little technique if you want to hold your rickrack in place. So let me show you that. I'll pop through here. And so I drew this design on with my friction marker, just like one of these, but it was actually this paler blue colour. And I just drew that onto a piece of old sheet. It's actually a sheet that I put a hole in last week, so I have washed it and dismantled it into its constituent parts. Actually, I'm just thinking I may actually stitch into rather than stitching over it, I might stitch into the rickrack, because I think it's going to hold it down a tiny bit better. So I'm going to have a slight raw edge on the end of it, but I think I might come back and just put some good little holding stitches over that anyway. And then to hold it down, I think I'll just do a little running stitch down the middle of it. I felt like I had something itching my neck. Could have been my hair. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't anything crawly. that time of year when the ants just try and come inside from, and you just get like a little random ant here or there, and you're thinking, where? Can't see any ant trails, but I think they may be just sort of exploring because the weather's hot, but we also do get those sort of bouts of rain as well. Rat can sometimes be a bit hard to push through. So I'll cut this one off about there, I think. Hopefully I can get a decent cut, clean cut. So yeah, halfway through the week already. My goodness. We had Dad's birthdays. I think I'd already told you about that, hadn't I? Yeah, we had his second birthday celebration. Not his for his second birthday, but the second birthday for his 80th birthday. Second celebration for his 80th birthday last weekend. So that was lovely, lovely meal out. And I'd made the cake for him the week before. Made a Lamington mousse, sort of Black Forest mousse cake. But I cheated because I used store-bought Lamingtons, but then, yeah, put beautiful maraschino cherries. Maraschino, are they? Or the cherry that's not overly sweet, but, you know, it comes sort of, yeah, not pickled. Comes in a jar, preserved, I guess. So we had those. Now I might do, I think, actually a back stitch and then whip it. I was just pondering what to do. So doing a forward back stitch. But you can do as you please. You could use a finer. I'm using a sort of a perle cotton here, but you could use a finer cotton. I might even use a finer cotton for the socks. We sort of do them in a darning style. This would also, in fact, the aprons would be a great opportunity if you wanted to do some weaving with thread. Now, I've got a recent video where I have done weaving, so I'll try and remember to link to that because that would be a fun one to try. Maybe if you wanted to do that on like a tablecloth, you could make it look like a woven tablecloth. And so the good thing about the friction marker is I will be able to run my iron over this when it's done, and any of the outlines that are left showing will be removed. But as you can see, it's doing a pretty good job just with the stitching of going over the outline. I'm even wondering if I am going to even whip it. I probably will, just because it gives a nice sort of smoother outline. Now across the top I might have a go at doing maybe a little chain stitch, I think. So it looks like a bit of a lacy neckline. Because the hex is a bit thicker, I'll have to do an up and down motion rather than angling through like I did, because that last stitch was a bit on the tricky side. So yeah, just play with your different stitches. These little hexies are a great opportunity to experiment with stitches. Worst case, if you don't like what you do, you can just take the stitches out and do another one. But they are good little miniature samplers. And then kind of samples as well, because then if you're using this on your stitching desk in the future, you can look across and get ideas of different stitches to use if you get a bit stuck. Because we all do periodically get a bit stuck in our ways, don't we, and just use the same stitches all the time. I will be going back to my dictionary of stitches, my A to Z of stitches that we did as a previous stitch along, to put it all together and also do some of the title pages, which will be a great chance to just go back and refresh myself on some of the different stitches that we did. I might come in with a different pink for like the little hearts and flowers. Might be fun. I might even use a more regular sewing cotton for those, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I am thinking I might not come back and whip this, because I almost like that the dress has got a bit more of a sketchy look to it. It's kind of, yeah, because this is a hand drawing, it's kind of nice to keep some of that sort of impression with it, I think. It's kind of nice. Good thing is you can always, when you erase the ink off, if you think it does need a bit of whipping or something, you can always come back in and add that. That's a good thing about a lot of stitching. It can be additive as well. I think I'll do the bird as a little bluebird, because I do like my bluebirds. In the old linens, that you often get those beautiful little bluebird motifs. So. And as a child, I had a little locket with a bluebird on. I still actually have that same locket. So I don't know if I might want to put just a few more stitches over the rickrack just to make sure that it stays good and secure. Just put one down at the very bottom as well. I think I'll come back in and do the buttons. I'll do the buttons as little French knots. I could have done them in a blue, for example, so I think I'll just do a single wrap French knot. If I think it needs two, I can, or no, a single will be fine because this is a relatively thick thread. And again, if they don't exactly line up with where I've drawn them on, because it was a bit sketchy in my drawing, doesn't matter, I can put them where I want. And then, so that's an example where I kind of got my knot a bit bodgy, but I fixed it up as I sort of untangled it on the surface before I went on. And all was not lost at all. See how we go. We might not get all of it stitched, but I'll try and show you as many different parts of it as I can. For the flowers and hearts, I think I'll just fill them in with little stitches, really. For the flowers, I might do just an outward, sort of like an asterisk-y type stitch, or I might do some French knots. Not French knots, detached lazy daisies, like what we do for a chain stitch. But just individual ones to form the petals, which I think we've done in a recent video. So I'll tie that off there, and then we will do the next bit. So yeah, I'll leave the embellishment of the dress and we'll go on and do the shorts maybe. So I think I'll do a green for that. Again, it's a thinnish perlé. It's an old vintage Coats Mercer crochet. I guess a crochet thread rather than a perlé, but they virtually are the same. See if I can get it unrolled with the end. Hopefully I can thread it somewhat okay. There we go. So it's probably going to be actually somewhat similar to what we did for the dress. Oops. Oh, then maybe this one is not as, yeah, this, now that's interesting. I haven't had many of my vintage threads that come apart, but that one is trying to fall apart on me. So I'm wondering then, do I go back to my original plan? And I think I'll do some red dotty pants. They just, for some reason, the red is just appealing to me. I want them to be like some very, in Australia we say daggy, like sort of not fashionable, daggy boxer shorts. Very much that was very much a term when, I don't know, when I was growing up, so that's quite a while ago when I was at school. They used to say, "Oh, you're such a dag." Like that was just a phrase, which isn't really used as much these days. But it's funny, the things from when we're growing up, they just sort of the phrases and things, they stay with us, don't they? So I've just got 3 threads of a regular embroidery floss. So I'd have to remember that lovely green one. That can go in my display, but it is past its prime. But it's a beautiful colour, so I'll just pop it on my little. I've got a like a cake dish, or one of those dishes that would have been used where you'd have sandwiches and like for a high tea. That's my nana's crockery, and I have all sorts of old sewing bobbins on that. So I'll pop it on that little display. I think I can hear Alex and Travis heading off to bed. So good night to them once I've finished this video. Thought Alex was going to watch a movie, but he might not have found anything to watch on TV, so off to bed they go. Just make sure we're in focus. So just going to outline this, and then we'll come in and do the little French knots. Hopefully I'm not making any knots myself in the piece. So we'll just come over here and come over here. But yeah, again, use whatever stitches you want, and yeah, the whipped stitch is a nice good way to give a sort of a smoother outline around something. So decide if that's the look you want, or if you want that more sketchy look. The back stitch kind of gives you just it's not as smooth of a line. When you then whip it, it all becomes a cohesive line. Yeah, I kind of like that this is a little bit clashy with the magenta next to it. I think it's a magenta more next to it, less a purple, more of a magenta. So I backed the piece of sheet that I used with another piece of sheet, so I'm actually going through a few layers here when I'm stitching. And I don't think this needle's quite as sharp. It looked like it was a new one from my needle pack, but maybe it's just not as sharp to begin with. Almost around. Ouch, just poked myself. Hopefully I don't. Oops, no, I'm going to try and bleed on the work. I'll just try and stop that and pull through with my other finger. At least I'm working in red, but still don't want to leave a bleeding finger on my piece of artwork. I think it was only a little jab. A few more stitches to get this in. And then we'll have a bit more French knot practice. I know some of you have said you find French knots challenging, but just, yeah, watching them be done helps you, and even just having that surface underneath to kind of push into as well can help. So I'll keep showing you French knots in case it's helpful. And yeah, for this one I'll probably do the pegs in a similar way. I might use a crochet cotton or something for some lighter coloured pegs. Now we're going for time. We've got about another 10 minutes left, I think. So we'll have a bit of time. We might come on to the bird next, because that would be fun. We can maybe do that with some. Sometimes I like to do some feather-like effects with some chain stitched. Now my thread's decided to not, just as I say, 10 minutes to go. It's like it doesn't want me to doesn't want me to leave it. So I keep stitching. If it's been this difficult, I'm not feeling inclined to do French knots with it, but we'll see how we go now. I've left a little gap in my stitches, so I'm just going to come in and fill that in there. And then let's give a French knot a go, and we'll see how we go. If my thread misbehaves, it'll be time to tie it off and move on to the bird. So I'm just doing a single wrap again because it's giving me big enough little sort of bobbles. This needle's just not giving me the love vibe, so I think I'll just do one more and then we'll tie this one off, and I'll probably come back with a different needle that's not going to be bothering me, but we can do that off camera, and you'll see a picture of this in the Slow Stitching Friends group and probably on the front cover of this video when it's up on YouTube. So I'll tie that off. Oops, and it's even knotting there. So yep, definitely time to tie this one off. Just going to stitch that knot into the back. It can just hide inside the hexi for eternity, or until someone pulls it apart in the future to understand what on earth we were doing when we were doing things by hand before the robots and the computers took over. Bird, I said, didn't I? I think I might do it in that blue. Although something to do, if you want to use two types of like just regular sewing cotton, you can actually put them together. So cut a length of them that is, and in fact I'm going to go to a different needle, because that needle was really just not giving me the loving vibes. And we're going to thread our needle like that. Just going to cut them so they're the same length. Oh no, they're almost the same length at the end purely by accident. And then we're going to put a knot into place. And we then need to just come into our little bird. I guess I could do the beak in a different colour, so I won't stitch the beak yet. And I might just sketch the bird around the outside first, and then we can decide. Yeah, I might not end up doing lazy daisy or chain stitch because the bird might be a bit small for that. I might just want to outline the wings and the tail. And I think definitely for the bird it'll be fine to do them more, not to do like a whip stitch, because I think it's nice if you just have little stitches that look almost like, yeah, sort of feathers. A little scrappy bird, really. And just using the two threads, you'll just get both of them sort of showing through at different points. So it will almost look like you've stitched with two different threads separately, but it's kind of how to get double the bang for your buck. And also you can then, you can combine more than two threads and you can get something that's like the equivalent of 3 strands of embroidery floss, but then with all the different colours. So it's almost variegated rather than changing as you stitch along. Every stitch has a bit of variegation in it. So again, you'll probably only be able to see it when you look at it closely, but definitely give it a go yourself in your own work and you'll be able to see just how it looks. And it's a great way because you can find these sort of cotton reels at op shops and things, and for the most part, even if they're a bit older, they won't be falling apart. As I say, this is one of the few threads I've had that has actually been sort of breaking with age. So I've been incredibly lucky with all my second-hand threads and ones that Alex's mum has handed on to me, even though they're probably many years old. They're still well and truly strong enough to stitch with. So I think I might bring the tail up even a bit more than in my drawing. Feel like he needs a bit more of a tail feather. Oops, I just caught the thread with my finger, and so now it's just trying to knot a bit. What's going on there? Okay, let's sort this problem out here before we go on. I hope I haven't made a knot there, have I? No. I think it's all unknottified. Just recut the end. Oops, get out of it, thread. So we'll do another tail feather coming up. Like that. And yeah, as I say, once I iron off the design, I can always come back in with a few more stitches if I need to anywhere. But I love how this has got like kind of a bit of a cartoony effect to it. It's not trying to look really fancy. It is looking very sketched. And it's good for me to push myself to draw some more things and embroider some more things, because I'm very confident embroidering. Not fine embroidery, but doing this sort of stitching, slow stitching, I feel very confident doing that. And so if I can just kind of then think about what I want to slow stitch and have a go at doodling it, that's a good little practice. I've just done a French knot for the eye, and then I'll just come down and do a bit of a wing down here. And I might do the music notes in the blue as well, so it's kind of like they are emanating from the bird. Bring the wing down slightly wider than I drew it as well. That's a good thing when you do it with the friction marker, it will erase and you can then just sort of tweak it as you stitch it. So it's almost like re-doodling but with thread this time. I think the design just helps me to kind of start, because again I would struggle to totally freehand stitch all of this design without having something to follow. Whereas when you've got a bit of a design, it just takes a lot of the stress out. So I might do the beak and the legs in the same colour. So I'll just travel myself up to here so I can do the music notes, and I think I'll do a French knot for the bottom of them. I've forgotten what that part of a note is called. Studied music and music theory. We used to do the exams where you had to play the music but also know the music theory. But can't remember that. And then I'll just do, I think, a long stitch down and then a stitch. Again, I've forgotten what that little diagonal bit's called. I'm sure there'll be many of you, probably some of you in the chat, that can tell me the different parts of a note. Or maybe I'm just thinking of the different names for the different types of, like the quaver or semi-quaver. Again, can't remember the other ones. Oops, that's, again, my finger caught it, but if I don't want it to knot, I need to make sure it's sort of pulling through evenly. So just be careful of that. If you are working with the two threads, sometimes it can be a little bit trickier if your finger sort of catches it. See, it's still trying to be a bit on the trickster side. Just have to fix it up here, I think, before we go on. Otherwise we'll have another knot as we go through. So I'll just bring my needle down and sort of make sure my thread is lined up. And then I can take my needle back up. I can do my French knot. Like that. Hopefully I can pull it through without trouble, but no, maybe not. This might be the French knot that fails. We shall see. Oh no, we have succeeded. Just and do downward stitch, and we've got a hair in it, and then we'll do a little diagonal stitch. And as you can see, I haven't exactly followed where I drew, but I've taken the broad gist. So we'll tie that off on the back, and in our last few minutes we'll just think about how we want to do the sock and how we want to do the washing line, which I won't probably have time to do in this video, but you'll definitely see it, and I'll pop in the description to the video how I've done that. But I'm thinking I might use a crochet cotton for the line and the pegs. So I'm just grabbing one out from over here. That might make a nice washing line, and I might be able to just use a slightly darker one for the pegs, or even just a different sort of coordinating one. And then for the sock, I'm kind of thinking that wants to be a blue sock, but I might use this nice blue, I think. Unless I think of another colour that might be fun. I mean, I could use red like a Where's Wally sock, but I think I'd like to use this blue or a similar sort of blue. And then yeah, for the pegs, I'll either do just probably a single little bit of crochet cotton, or I can do some more knots like I did here. And for this one, I've already stitched it down with just an invisible stitch around the outside. And I'll come in and do some flowers on this one, probably do some lazy daisy stitches for the flower and just fill in the little heart shapes, I think, over there. And then I'll finish doing my French knots, and that will be 2 hexagons for this week once I put them together with sort of more tactile aprony pieces and then some stitched pieces for this one. So thanks for watching. Have a beautiful week ahead. Come and join us in Slow Stitching Friends over on Facebook if you haven't. Let me know in the comments if you're enjoying these videos and if you're stitching along. Thanks everyone. Bye.